Hello everyone and welcome to the most mysterious podcast in the realm, House of Games. I'm your co-host and pawn, Rune, joined by my almighty lord, Otto! But that's not enough this time around, ladies and gentlemen, because we're also joined by Ulfgang, the stalwart warrior whose might is unmatched, and Mireneye, the sage whose wisdom lights our path through the Dynasthir's darkest secrets. Without further ado, let's embark on today's journey into the heart of House of Games.
Something has to be done.
Welcome everyone to this week's episode of House of Games, and as not usual, but now finally we have another two guests on this podcast, and this has been an episode I think we've been looking forward to a lot and unfortunately delayed a bit, but now finally we're here, we're ready to make history. So I think without further ado, I'll give the word to my guests, and I'm thinking, Ulfgang, since it's your first time on the podcast, would you like to start and just introduce yourself and tell us who you are?
Hello, I'm Ulfgang. For the purposes of this podcast, I'm a game developer. For the purposes of life, I do many other things, which I'm not sure we need to go into now for this.
No,
but I co-developed Dynasthir with Mireneye over here, and it's a jolly old time. And sometimes it's not a jolly old time, but we make it work. I make games and I love them, and I hate the industry. That's about all you need to know about me.
Oh, interesting.
Man, you become so good at summarizing those things. It's like, I make games, I love playing games, I hate the industry.
I can feel that too. There's something to that.
My name is Mireneye. The original source of this mysterious game that we're making, the obscure Dynasthir, the world that is dying sort of game. Fire spinner, game developer, adventurer. Right now, I think digital nomad probably is the best explanation for my current situation. It's a bit trendy, so I'm not like the matcha sort of like sitting on a resort somewhere sort of digital nomad, not yet. But I do drink matcha, so there's that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Cool. And I'm thinking again for our, if there are any new listeners who haven't heard the first episode, even though it's highly recommended. So could you just give us a brief helicopter pitch or elevator pitch, I think, or a helicopter view of Dynasthir, the whole project, maybe a little bit from start to where we are and what it is, basically.
Yeah, I've answered this a lot of times, and Ulfgang's been with me for all of the public time for Dynasthir, basically, from the time that we started showing it off. So how about I fill in some of the just before, and then I think maybe he can do the rest if he wants to.
I'm all in on the helicopter pitch. Let's go.
Got a helicopter all over this place. All right, so in 2011, I started writing lore and story that was supposed to be for a friend and me playing a role-playing game in English. And I was like, I'm just going to knock it out over the weekend. That was, 11 years ago? No, wait. 2011. It's 20,
right.
Oh my god. It's so long ago. So anyways, so I fell in love with that world. Kept writing. We never had that role-playing session. Someday maybe we will. So that was like the early part, and then I went on and did a few other things. Mainly just getting my feet wet in game development. I was hanging out with a project that was called Salt Mountain. I wanted to do a Eastern type Souls-like, and I learned some Unity stuff. And then I learned that I didn't like Unity. And then I was like, nah, you know what? I need something that feels more intuitive to me. And I had been looking at Unreal Engine before, and I was waiting for them to do they were doing like a big like UI overhaul thing. And I was like, I'm going to try to get into it once they've done that. And so I got in on that around 2014. Those are like the big moments. And then, you know, that's when I'm like, I'm going to sit down and actually do Dynasthir. As how I imagine it to be. I made something in RPG Maker as well that was a part of the world that does exist out there somewhere, floating around on the interwebs. But yeah, that's sort of like those years leading up to that part. And then there are some like gap years here where I'm still keeping things a little bit of a secret. Ulfgang is off doing other things, I believe it right at that point. And then I bring the game to Arctic Game, not the Jam. It's Arctic Game Pitch. I don't remember which year.
Right.
And the judges are like, "Whoa, this is really cool!" And we win a part of the competition, like two parts of the competition. We win part of that competition, and got to show off the game at Arctic Game. What is it? No, Nordsjön.
Right.
Those are the broad strokes of it. After that, I remember this one day I was just showing off like the screenshots, I believe, or like videos, silly things so early to Ulfgang. And that's, I think, where he can take off like what his perspective on this is.
And that's when I said I'm in, and the rest is history. Not yet. I guess still being told right now.
Yeah.
That's when I joined this wacky inflatable arm tube game. This is a part of the story that I used to share, like, as of like, I don't know, with joy, but now I'm just kind of over it because game dev is so much more than that. And I've learned that, especially in the last few years. But when I joined the project, you know, he sent me basically a vertical slice. And and as excited as I was, I went back to him with a list of, here's everything that sucks about this. And these need to change. I don't think I told him if I'm to work on this, but I was basically thinking that to myself. And he went and changed all those things, and the game felt better. And I just started working on it. This is not a slight on his capability as a dev. Absolutely not. He fucking does wonderful things, mind-blowing things even. He's not only the only technical artist I know, but the best one too. I don't know. It's kind of a blur after that for a few years, to be honest.
So it's a productive blur then after that, I guess.
It's a lot of stuff happening in my personal life blur. And then at one point I moved to Sweden a couple years ago for us to like work on the game together and finish it off. And boy, that's a fucking odyssey for another time, that's for sure.
Odyssey is a good fucking word for it.
But basically we spent the pandemic together. Yeah, we spent the pandemic together trying to work on the game, dealt with some people that really stagnated the development of the game, and that part sucked. But now we're, back on our individual journeys, I guess, but still working on the game, and it's going great. As for the actual game, which is what you asked us for a pitch of the game,
yes,
the helicopter pitch being, we're over here over LA, as you can see, in our fancy helicopter. And down there, you can see Dynasthir, this incredible action game with lots of exploration, like a lot of exploration. Exploration that will confuse you sometimes, as some people have managed to find nothing in the demo of all the things that are there. And I can't wait if one of you is that kind of person.
That's going to be so funny. It's
going to be hilarious. It's psychedelic. It's dark fantasy. It's as I said, filled with exploration. That's one of the pillars of the game, is exploration. It's inspired by crazy shit like Demon Souls and Dragon's Dogma and Morrowind, and you'll see the giant mushrooms and be like, yeah, there it is. That's Morrowind. And I fucking love working on this game. And I'm probably going to cry when I have to stop working on this game. But that might also be a bit of Stockholm Syndrome because I've been doing this for 6 years. Probably 7 at this point.
It's relatable feelings.
It's got adrenaline because we hate stamina, which is basically a heat meter, as some gamers, good old gamers, know it to be. You play the game well, you do your perfect dodges, you do your parries, you do your attacks without getting hit, and that adrenaline bar is going to go up. And then you use that to unleash what we call skills, which you learn by playing the game from enemies, from various places in the world. You'll go around and discover things for yourself and learn. Your character, I guess, learns in a way as you learn about the world. And you get to learn about the character too. Yeah, I'll leave it there.
Cool.
I guess some of our designs are almost like, it's like we're trying to hit this like nice balance of like, yeah, it's the player learning, but also like a one-to-one, not one-to-one, but like close to one-to-one representation of the character in the game learning as well.
Can you repeat that? Explain that more, like for a moron.
Yeah, so you can think of this as being like intrinsic and extrinsic, right? So you can think of it as being like something that the character learns about in the game. And that's one level of like learning. So like...
Can we make that even more moronish? You use 2 words I don't know, and then you talk about a character. Are you talking about the player or the character that I'm playing in the game, and he's learning, and I'm still controlling him? Like, make it even simpler.
Okay, so knowledge on the level of the character that you're controlling, and knowledge on the level of who you are, I would say. So
who you are, meaning the character who they are, or you the player?
Who I am as a
Welcome to House of Games, where Otto and I are like autistically thinking at things from such a programming point of view.
Yes.
I would say let's approach it this way. Camera, there we go. There we go. Let's approach it this way. I want to hear what your guys' experience has been with the demo, so far at least, and what you guys learned about the game and about yourselves playing it.
Exactly. Yeah. Rune, do you want to go first? I have a bunch of notes, so do you want to start?
Just rip into us. Go nuts.
Yeah. Let's see.
So anyway, this game sucks.
I wasn't quite sure how we were going to approach this with feedback and so on, but in my notes, what I wrote, the first couple of notes is I want to go through these things. And I know these, I make games. I know these are things that are changeable and will probably come later on. Or it's because I'm not a PC gamer and I just don't know how to play games on PC. But I noticed there's no mouse cursor. So it was really hard to tell where I'm at in the start menu. I was looking at these purple and white clouds, and that was a bit difficult. I didn't quite get that first. But I played this game before, because you were here before and talked about the game. But that was still a thing that I thought was difficult to see where I was at in the menus. So that's the first thing that happens in the game. So I still think that's should be more clear where I'm at. And then
I would like to say I'm putting an open call to any programmers that would like to briefly join the project and help us with some shit that we've been hitting our head against for years. Thanks.
Yeah, there's some silly like Unreal Engine specifics that's like, we just want to get past those things. Like,
please, anybody, any programmer out there.
Slightly outside of my reach of comfort in what I'm working on.
Yeah, but I also noticed that the UI, it seems to be aimed towards PlayStation 5 controllers. And I was playing first on my Steam Deck. I assume you guys haven't made it sort of playable on Steam Deck. I mean, from a dev kit perspective, but it still works, so that's cool. And it runs much smoother this time around, both on the Steam Deck and my PC. So that was amazing to see the performance improvements. So that was really cool.
I'm like immediately so interested because I didn't know you were running it on Steam Deck. Because I just know we made gradual improvements, but we haven't had testing on Steam Deck on this version yet. So that's so exciting to me.
I was gonna show you, but of course this bastard dies every time I start it. Right before we start recording, I wanted to show you.
Your Steam Deck is dying. Will you persist?
Well, it was running on the Steam Deck and it was fine. I think it was maybe easier to play on the Steam Deck because I'm a console gamer at heart, and I also noticed these PlayStation 5 symbols or PlayStation symbols. So that was a little bit easier to get my hang on the controller.
That's something I haven't thought about, but we have both of the different glyphs, or like, we swap between, the keyboard and the controller glyphs. And it never really dawned on me that like probably Steam Deck is considered a controller, so it would use those glyphs. It's just like this thing that like never popped into my head, but that makes perfect sense.
So are you telling me if I play on the PC, it would automatically change the UI to PC?
If you connect a controller or like just enable it, the game should swap automatically.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so we have keyboard and mouse and gamepad, but so far we don't yet have different controller button UIs. So, Xbox, PlayStation. We have PlayStation, but we still need to add Xbox and I guess Steam Deck, Nintendo, all that stuff.
But as a console gamer or a gamer in general, you know where the buttons are if you see the PlayStation ones or... well, I suppose the Nintendo and Xbox ones are super confusing because A and B swaps every time. It's a mess to play on a Steam Deck and a Switch, but...
We'll see exactly how we approach it at the end of the day. There's some good ideas floating internally of what we're gonna do with this.
Okay. Well, next on my list, I don't know if I said this in the chat before it started, but I had family relatives coming over to Japan, so I haven't had time to play it yesterday or today before we recorded this. So I'm looking at my notes from last week. But I wrote also, and I remember this, of course, super hard to know the controller. Where do I change the weapons? How do I equip them? So I'm not sure. When you say that the UI stuff should change when I go between controller or keyboard, I can't really see that. Or maybe it's because I played on the Steam Deck that it wouldn't update the way. Because I had no idea how to equip anything. So that was it. But, eventually I got around it and I figure it out, but maybe just clearer ways to how to control it. But again, I am not a PC gamer, so it's just anything PC is confusing to me. So that was another thing I had there.
Yeah, so I guess the UI updates, but the messages in World haven't updated.
Oh yeah, because we do have the tutorial messages that are at the start that probably needs to have the update properly.
We need to look into that.
Maybe go to settings and I can sort of see the controller. I don't know. But I mean, this is something I struggle with when I make my own games. Because when you make the game, you know how to play it. And then I have to sort of think like, how would someone play my game? And that's really hard. It feels like it's such a simple thing to do, but it's fucking hard to show off how to play a game for someone who never played it.
I think UI is the single most thing we iterate on. I think the most right now. Like it's the thing that keeps coming back and being like, just a little bit more, just a little bit more, just a little bit more, and there's always just a little bit more. And it's both it's interesting what the sort of quality bar people hold it to at this point. It's like, yeah, they just want it to be very AAA at this point in terms of everything needs to go bleep bloop, everything needs to highlight, everything needs to blah blah, and all the settings you gotta have exactly all the settings that people expect. It's so interesting.
I do agree with that it's sort of we're sort of leaning into this sort of standardization in how games should be played and so on. And I disagree with. I think it shouldn't be like that. I think every game should just do what they want to do. But I know people have this thing where the X button, for example, on a PlayStation controller, that's where you jump, no matter what. And I think it is a Metroid on the Nintendo Switch, and the whatever the bottom button is on the Switch, I think it's the B button. You don't jump on that. Or what you would expect, that's not what's happening. And some people think there should be standards on those things. I don't think that should be a standard. I think you should do whatever you feel is great. Maybe option to change the controller, but it sounds like such a simple thing to do, but I know that's really hard. But nonetheless, like in the start menu or somewhere where I can just see the controller and then these sort of arrows to every button. At least that's how I try to solve it in my games. Like in the settings, you can see the controller if you need to. So that's a quick and simple way. But then again, this is a quite complex game, so I don't quite know how you would do that with a controller. Anyway, that was just some of the input I had there on the controller. So I found it a bit difficult to get going because I couldn't figure out how to equip my sword and get through the first those planks in the first cave.
First boss, the planks.
Yeah, the first boss is the plank.
We should like just put a health bar on those planks and show like a health, like the boss health bar.
Boss fight music.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, well,
if you take too long, it actually comes to life and
yeah. The stuff. Yeah, but I talked about the menus a little bit more. I do like I think I said this before as well. This tiny animations that takes place when you go through the menus. That's a nice touch. That's something I even want to copy to my game when I play it. I like these.
You can message me about it anytime and ask me.
Did you make those things and you drew them as well, or is it? Oh, cool. Yeah, I really like it. You go to settings and the cogs are changing a little bit, or skills, and you see this bicep flexing. Those were nice touches. Really cool.
I think the original version of that he knocked out in like a day, and then we put them in, and then like I think this is like the second or third version of them, and they've stayed quite similar. But I bet behind the scenes, Ulfgang has thought about them a lot.
Yeah, it's the second version of those specific ones in the top of the menu.
It's still crazy that they've been like that for such a long time. Like everything else has changed so much. It's just, yeah.
They didn't need changing. Yeah,
they persisted while other things died.
But it's small details like that I really enjoy, and. But yeah, that's sort of my first notes here. Odo, do you want to go through something first before I get into the world and the sort of the great and the bad about the world itself? Do you have any small? What did you guys say? We're gonna rip you a new one or whatever with our feedback.
Rip into us.
Yeah. Do you have any more?
Yes.
Rips?
Yeah. I have some smaller note as well. I think also I agree that. As you said, Rune, it's probably a small fix, but in the beginning it seems like the tutorial text assumes a controller and there's no instructions for mouse and keyboard, so I think that's just a minor thing. So then also something that would be interesting, I think, is to have, I don't know if there is such an option, but I couldn't find it, but at least subtitles for dialogue, because that, in part helps with the clarity of what is being said, and also something that I think would be really useful is who is talking, because sometimes I would hear somebody talk, but I had no idea where the voice was coming from, if it was this character or that character, or sometimes it was a character and I had no idea where the person was.
And one quick thing here, how to talk to people. I never figured that out.
Yes, that's number 2 on that. So it's actually F to talk to somebody, I found. But there should be a little prompt, press F to talk or something. That would be useful. Or I don't know if it was as F. I changed the controllers a little bit, so it might have been some other character.
But to be fair on what Marmalade said about not having like a standard sort of thing for all games, because to press F to talk, for example, that would be something that I don't want in my games, because I don't know,
right.
There's just something about that makes it feel so mainstream, on the nose, a little bit too much. But then how you would solve that, I have no clue. Maybe I don't know, like a symbol maybe. I don't know how to solve it, but I feel like in this world that would sort of ruin it, but at the same time it might be fucking important, so you know how to talk to people. But I don't know the solve.
I mean, I still hate the triangle thing we put in. You know, that we got a little triangle prompt when you can interact with certain things. I hate it. I hate it.
There's a meta commentary here that like the overall interactions with things in the world of Dynasthir is a little bit more important than interacting with characters for dialogue. And yeah. So like, there's absolutely important dialogue. Don't get me wrong about that, but there's some meta commentary here because we have interaction button for things, but we don't have them for people. So there's that. Yeah, like if we would add more interaction parts, I think maybe just add them to everything, and not everything wants to talk to you.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Well, I think the point being, regardless if you want to do everything samey, as Rune usually says, or if you want to do it more uniquely, the point being, I think, is that the UX should guide the player to how do you proceed in the game. For example, you want to talk to this character, and regardless of how you do it, if you have some sort of symbol or whatever it is, the player should be able to know, in my mind at least, how do they do what they want to do. One really great example of that you actually did that I was really impressed by was in the beginning section. There is some kind of cliffside with a chest or something on top of it with some loot, and then there's a salamander climbing up on the cliffside, and then for some reason that prompted me to think like, oh, maybe I can climb that, and lo and behold, that turned out to be the case. So that's a great example of where you didn't have to have a prompt, press F to climb or something, but you actually instructed the player, me in that case, on how to do something without telling them explicitly. So, you know, maybe if there's something to be done there, but that's the sort of thing I think being asked.
But
I can
the
see-
F button, is that the action button? Like, is that for everything?
Yeah,
Because in
in
that
there.
case, okay. Well, maybe in my case, I couldn't figure out what button to press.
To go into game dev mode here for a second, I can see an NPC early on beckoning you, like, "Hey, come here! Hey, get over here! 'Cause let me talk to you about the gabagoo." And then you go to him, and you got to figure out how to interact with him. So you just press all your buttons, and then once you do it once, you know how to do it. Boom, done. Ship it.
It's good stuff. Just out of curiosity, Rune, did you figure out how to climb things?
No, when you said you can climb, do you mean like in Zelda, that kind of climbing, or?
Not quite Zelda, but like you have specific places you can climb.
But there's like, okay, so there's like an actual climbing animation for that as well. You don't talk about just jumping up. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So this is to me that's exciting. To me, it's super exciting that one of you picked that up and one of you like just sort of missed out on that part of the game entirely. It's that's where this game thrives, I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's I really appreciate those things. I always talk about that on this podcast. These things that people can miss are even better.
And I think one small nitpick, or actually, before I do that, I will also give you praise on something that I thought was really amazing. So finally, now I got to play the game on my good computer. Last time I tried to do it on my laptop, and that didn't really go as I thought. But this time I played it, and I thought it was really responsive, and especially the controls are super responsive for the character. So that's something that not even AAA games achieve always. So kudos to that. Really, really well done. And one thing, I think it's probably just a bug, but sometimes there was some enemies that sort of were stuck in a sort of state where they just looked in a certain direction, and you could basically kill them without them even reacting.
Or is that
because
lore?
The deepest lore.
Yeah, they're just vegetables.
Yeah, well, actually, I had the same thing, and just liking Souls games or whatever, and then playing this game, and I did pick up on, like, there's a lot of lore here. I don't know all the lore, but I can tell there's a lot of lore going on here. When I did that, like hitting these enemies, I just thought maybe my mind ran to some sort of, they're like these peaceful monks that just don't want to fight, and they rather
Are
just
we the
die.
baddies?
That was how I was thinking about it. So I didn't think it was a bug, but maybe it is a bug.
We're just not going to tell you. I love that you both had that
No
experience.
comment.
Well, I'm gonna guess it's a bug because when you go close enough, then they start attacking you and doing the usual stuff.
Have you heard of personal
so I
space?
imagine it's just
Like, some people get really agitated when you do that. That's when you break
Right.
monk
The
mode.
deepest lore, personal space.
yeah.
We actually we went through, or I went through the project recently, and I changed the interaction boxes for basically all the characters we have, because I started thinking about the interaction boxes as personal space, like the inverse of personal space. So it's like, oh, you can
Right.
talk to this character from further away because technically he's like okay to communicate at that distance. This is a funny thought. I don't know if I like this thought and if it's gonna be in the game, but like,
Well, I think it's a great idea, but the thing where it might fail in execution, I think, is the same with UX that we talked about earlier. That could be a great idea, but if it's not communicated that this character is gonna be responsive on a longer distance, if there's nothing telling the user, then they might think that it is a bug. For example, that you can't talk to this character, but you can talk to this character, and
Sure.
the only difference is difference, but they don't think about it.
Yeah,
So
I agree. That's something to think about.
And I was thinking also, based on the game, you wouldn't think that people have personal spaces and so on. Like when you said that, it sort of reminded me of my own game, which is all about social class and stuff like that. And based on who you talk to, they might say more or less. But that's also a part of the core of the game, interacting with people. But this game, I would say, is, well, you said it yourself, that the story is more told through the world and not necessarily through NPCs. So then, like Odo said, that would probably come across as a bug or just confusing if there is this personal space thing for NPCs, and like no one would think about that. But if someone was told it, it would be like, oh, okay, well that's pretty cool.
But here's, on the top of my head, here's a couple of ways that you could solve it. For example, you could have the more I don't know, extroverted people maybe shouting at you from a longer distance when they see you, or something like that. You could have something like the characters you're able to talk to is highlighted somehow. Maybe you have some, the cloud or something
camera
in their
can maybe-
background or something.
A little bit.
Yeah, or
Hey!
something like that.
The camera goes.
You have sort of a highlight that, now if you press F or whatever, then there's an interaction. You talked about having a triangle or something, and then maybe that could appear when it's possible to talk to a character or something, just prompting the user that now it's possible, because otherwise it's impossible to know, even if you know that functionality is in there.
I'm thinking what you like. You said, Ulfgang, that you're a game developer, but you hate the industry. I feel like this is a perfect example of where art, or let's say you want personal spaces for people, and that's a cool idea. I like that, but it's just next to impossible to make that work for a gamer who would never expect that. So then this sort of corporate bullshittery comes in, where you sort of have to tell people with a triangle UI pop-up or something that you can talk now and so on. This is the clash between art and the corporatism in the gaming industry, and I hate that shit. I really do. It sucks, but I feel like it's just the way it has to be. Like you can't always have it your way. You have to sort of give in to the corporateness to make sure the game works, or to make it clear or whatever. But yeah, that's just my thoughts.
Yeah, I agree. I also want to say that like I've been thinking actively about that mechanic now of personal space. It's like, yeah, that's absolutely doable if you think about it early on in the project. At this point, no. But I think there's many good ways to do that in a game when you think about that from the beginning. Like when a character is open to interacting with you, they just turn to you. Right?
Yeah.
Like let's say someone's standing, you're walking up to someone and their personal space is bigger and they're facing away from you and you've entered their personal space and they just like turn in your direction and then you can interact with them, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess we can do already something like that in Dynasthir with head tracking, right? Like we have animals that like when you're close to them, they just like track you with they look at you, right? We haven't put that yet in for people, so that could be related to it.
Technically, we have all the parts there.
Yeah, exactly. It's just not we didn't flip the switch on it.
Exactly. So I guess that would be a little bit like I don't know, Rune, if this is gonna tick you off, but since they are AAA games, but that is a little bit like the Elder Scrolls games that the characters around you usually greet you and stuff, just sort of to let you know that you can speak to them, I suppose. To me, I don't think it's that much giving into corporate whateverness, but rather that you sort of adapt it to how human psychology works.
Oh. Yeah, but that works. I feel that's probably a good middle ground there. Because now that you say it, I'm thinking that like, hello there, and then I feel like I can talk to that person.
Here's a thing that can add to this is that like an idea that necessarily came from a corporation isn't like inherently bad by itself. I think it's just the landscape that these ideas can create over time. I think that becomes problematic because like of course there's good ideas in like different places.
Well, I would say good ideas have come from people that are artists that are working inside a corporation.
Yeah, I buy that. What I meant was just that sometimes the artisticness can't really be told the way you want it because it just doesn't work. But what you just said now, Odo, that makes I didn't think about that, but that makes perfect sense, and that's like a good marriage between corporateness and artisticness. But maybe the artists thought about that. That would be cool if people said, hey, and then that's all the art part of it. But it could have also been that someone said, like, this is fucking confusing. Like, I don't know who I can talk to. And then someone said, well, we have to make sure it's more the player understands these things. And then that idea came from that. So,
to be fair, I think every interactable character does say hey when you enter their sight range. I think.
Yeah.
Combined with head tracking, there you go.
But I don't understand, like, it was a bit confusing though when I talked to someone, like, do I press next or how much is that? But I do play a lot of Soulsborne games. I think that if I keep talking, there's a new dialogue being triggered the next time around. Is that how it works behind the scenes, or am I just imagining this?
You're pretty much right, I would say.
Okay. Cool. That's cool.
I do want to add that this is for like everybody, players, game developers, more for game developers, but everybody. It's the thing about UX, it's how consistent you are with it. So yeah, it's good to have familiarity for your players to some extent, at least to how to basically control the game. But you have enough freedom to, when a player starts playing the game for the first time, they have a period of time where they're learning the rules of the world, right? I guess that's world building in a way, but not quite for this specific thing. So you're learning like, okay, how far can I fall before I die from fall damage? Is there fall damage? How do I interact with things? Do I hail people like in Dragon's Dogma 2 or talk to them? And that's two separate things that I can do. And they both have different, like each game has the freedom to build its own consistent rules on how to interact with things, and that's good. And devs you should take advantage of that because that's super good. You can make your world unique or your game more unique as long as you keep it consistent throughout.
Yeah. Well, Rune, do you want to go into the more big picture things
Speaking
about
of
the
world.
game?
Speaking of world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Speaking of.
Last time we talked, you said it was not quite like a software game, but I kept feeling like it is. And now, Wolfgang, you said it's an adventure action game and so on. So I'm thinking how I'm gonna approach my next point of this is, well, I can't stop see the similarities. And I'm a big Souls fan.
So are we.
But what I do love about the Souls games are the tight, detail-rich environment. This game feels more like a big and more empty. It feels a little bit more MMO. And what I wrote in my notes is that the distances are so far, so that, I wrote here, if I could sort of grab the entire game and make it a third, just squeeze everything in to a third of what it is, the distances to each thing would feel quicker and tighter. But that, again, is the sort of Soulsborne player in me who likes these tight environments. I did play Elden Ring, which is much bigger, but I was not as big of a fan of that game as the other games, because I do like the details and the tightness and so on. Now, it's an adventure, so I do understand that the distances must be important at some point, and I will come to a point later on in this little monologue where that really worked for me, and that was also when I got sort of hooked as well. So it's kind of weird that the thing I don't really like is the thing that hooked me in the end. But I gave an example here. So I went up to the mines, and then I looked to my left, and there's like a campfire and some benches, and then I ran over there, and there's nothing there. But to get over there, it took let's say 5 seconds, running slowly over there, look around, nothing, and then I run back to the train track that goes into the mines. So that, for example, would just be, if it was just tighter, so I could just quickly go in there and look if I can find anything. Nothing here, I can go. That would have felt much better. Another one is I went out through two big gates, and then I kept running and running and running, and then I met a NPC woman coming towards me. But this path here was so long, and it took me, and I didn't quite understand. Well, this is how when I play whatever game, this sort of, when you just keep running, I don't understand the point of it. It just takes forever to get somewhere. However, the twist here is that I kept running and running and running, and up a slope, I looked to my right, and then I figured I can jump up on these cliffs. I go there, and then I see a man coming with a torch running. At this point, I had to leave the house in the real world. So I quit playing the game. But that thing right there, and this is what I talked about before, about the lore and the mystery of the game, which I really think works really great. That thing, because I had been going forever and nothing happened, and then I see this dude coming out with a torch, that worked really well, because something happened, and then I got really curious. Where did it come from? What was he doing? Is he running away from someone, or is he... Yeah, I still don't know the answer to the question, what that guy was doing. I'm sure you guys know who I'm talking about, maybe. But that worked really well.
It's got to be Bill in accounting.
Bill in accounting?
Yeah. That's the... yeah. Yeah.
He was trying to tell you about how you can save 15% on insurance. We're also 100% fucking with you and not going to tell you what that was.
Yeah, but I want to go back to him, though. If I figured out how to save the game, and that was also one of my previous things, too. I'm not quite sure if I figured that out. Because I kept playing on the Steam Deck, and then next time I played on the PC, and then I played on the Steam Deck again, and I had to keep going from the start. But anyway, so big, vast environments works when these things happens, but sometimes, for example, the village, it feels like it's just maybe 10 times bigger than it has to be. It could just be squeezed together to make it easily accessible. Like I said, it sort of feel like I'm playing an MMO all alone. So make those areas tighter. That would be how I would enjoy the game more. But of course, yeah, like I said, when it comes to From Software games, I like in tighter environments.
Let me ask you this about just the starting environment in general. If you describe this place in one word, would you say that it's a bit lonely?
Yeah.
Perfect.
That's I actually want to talk about a bit about what you said because I find it fascinating, and I think about this shit quite a lot. I feel to do good exploration, you need you, you need to fuck with people's expectations, because the moment people have locked in into wherever I go, this is what I find, you've kind of like took the joy out of it, right? And I love Elden Ring, great game. Shout out to the Elden Ring defuckinated mod, fixes everything I didn't like about it. It's great. But after a while in Elden Ring, and I don't mean to talk shit about Elden Ring. I'm just making a comment about the world, because I also didn't like you. I didn't quite like just the vastness of it, but I didn't like it specifically for this reason. Is after a while, everywhere I went, I would find a basement to go into, enemies to fight, maybe a chest with a weapon in it, or like it's always like wherever I was going, I was gonna fight someone. And very rarely there would be someone to talk to, but they kind of just took all those people and put them in a base, and they're safe and sound, and you don't need to worry about it. And the best parts were definitely in Elden Ring, the legacy dungeons, right? The big castle, the basement of the big castle, where it's all like quiet, and you have those bats sleeping, and like you keep looking around, and you find a fucking Ulcerous 3 spirit. Fuck those guys. But that was the first one I found, right? And I was like, oh my god, what the fuck is this? And I killed that, and then you go deeper and you find more stuff, and it's all quiet, and there's nothing extra. All right, that's fantastic because it's something different. So you gotta fuck with expectations. You can't have that every corner you turn has something amazing in it, right?
Yeah.
And you have to
totally
balance
agree.
that thing of like, it might be empty, there might be someone, there might be something, there might be who knows what.
Yeah. So, yeah, I totally agree. That's a great philosophy, and I think that can make for a really fantastic game. The only thing, again, I think that's important in this case is to make it clear to the user that this is the intention, because that might not always be clear, because to somebody it might feel like if it's a big empty world, they might get into the lore and they understand it and all of that, but somebody else like me or Rune, maybe we just think that you haven't implemented the stuff that's supposed to be there yet or something.
There's a lot of that for sure, but in the demo map there's very little left that isn't implemented.
Of course, but if it's supposed to be empty and lonely and whatever else it is, then I would recommend that to give the player some tool of discovering that is the intention, and it's not just it's not filler content. That is the actual content. However, you would do that either through dialogue or I don't know, environmental storytelling or whatever you want. But
it's a good point to think about. And I will think about it. I'm thinking about it right now. There's also the thing of, even when you show intention to someone in a conversation, for example, that there's still some people are going to misinterpret it, right?
Absolutely.
So there's a degree of, you gotta let your player fuck up, and you gotta let your player think their own thoughts on your game.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it feels like the game is shoveling what it's trying to tell you down your throat, and then it becomes preachy, right? Then it becomes what's the word? What it's like philosophy and wisdom that isn't
right.
It's pretentious, right? It's like, oh, look at the thing I made and understand it specifically for what it is. And it's like, how about you let me think for myself for a little bit and just breathe in what there is there and make my own decision. And maybe later on I find lore and I'm like, oh, that's cool. And every time a game has done that for me or to me, I always remember it.
Yeah,
because it's like, oh, I didn't figure that out by myself. That's fantastic. That someone else did, and I get to enjoy that now with new context, new nuance. I get to see the world again in a way of that game.
Good point.
Yeah, there's something to be said here as well for like, this is the first town you get to, right? So there's something to be said for here that like we could have been designing things with in mind that like, we have some tight spaces, design spaces for like the first hour, and then like easing people into the, some other lonely place where the point is the loneliness, for, capturing the player a little bit more in that sense. That's something like we could have done. I like to believe that this has its own point as well on the other spectrum. So like, and it does make it stand out. But how to make that in a way that people resonate with, where that those feelings that we want to translate to the player, that is always an ongoing process, I would say.
For sure, yeah, 100%. And we gotta always hit the balance. We can't like go one way or the other too much.
Yeah. Should this designer go for always what the player expects, or the journey they sort of want to take the player on? So we have a specific journey. Well, we have a very broad specific journey, let's call it. And this certainly has its place in that journey. And I'd like to hone down on what makes that unique, rather than copying, say, what a Souls game would be doing, where it's like it's a tight small space that communicates a specific Souls-like design and gameplay. So we have our own gameplay parts to communicate, and we have our own sort of broad direction.
Exactly what you were saying, Rune, earlier.
Yeah, I feel like I sort of made that point in a way where, like, I sort of painted a picture of that. I got annoyed with the distances, but then that guy with a torch came out of nowhere, and that really, I don't think that would have worked if it only took me 3 minutes to get there. Now it took me 10 minutes, and it's also almost to the point where, where the fuck am I going? What am I going to do? And then that happened, and that, I think, like I said, that had a really good effect. But because I'm a Soulsborne player, I reckon my brother will really like this way more than I do, because this would definitely resonate with him. But like I said, I can't stop seeing the similarities with a Souls game. And I think that is messing with my experience, because then I'm just expecting things in a different way. And I can't help the fact that I expect things to be a little bit quicker.
No, it's not your fault.
Nah, so I think that now that you guys sort of gave your point of view, it totally makes sense. And yeah, you're probably right that you should hone in on this, because I do think that that would, I mean, in this day and age, you want to make something unique, and this is the unique part for sure, one of the uniqueness of the game. So don't give in to the Souls players like myself. But yeah.
We're not going to give you the damn bottom prompts.
Sorry?
We're not going to give you the damn bottom prompts. The Souls bottom prompts.
But you got good points there. I wanted to say too about some positives about the environments. The sparks that were raining in the village, that was really cool. I thought that was. I'm not sure what the lore is there, but I assume it has something to do with it's maybe a mining village and some shit happened, and I don't know why it was sparks raining, but I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah.
So nice that everybody has different names for it.
Rain spark.
And fire rain, and a bunch of other ones.
To add to that, the environment I think was very well done. It's there's a lot of different biomes as I saw it, a lot of different looking places. There's a lot of visually appealing things to see. So really kudos to that. There seems to be some sort of day-night cycle and some sort of weather system. So that's really cool. After dying at some point, going back the same way, it's a different weather or time of day, and then you realize it just looks completely different, and the feeling you get is different. So for replayability, if not else, it's really, really well done.
Yeah, even after so many years of making this game, the weather has not gotten boring to us. It just keeps things fresh.
It takes so much time to look at through the environments in different conditions.
Yep.
Yeah, I can imagine. Something on the combat system, I don't know if I did it sort of, if you could call it cheating or something, but I realized that there was this one NPC that I don't know if Rune spoke to this person, but at least I noticed an NPC in the beginning of the game where you could trade your beginner sword for what looked sort of like a Viking fidget spinner or something. It was sort of a boomerang thing, so you could throw it and it came back to you every time. So that was my favorite weapon. You'll see it in the background footage of this episode, but I use it all the time for every enemy, every boss. Fucking loved it. Nothing turned out to be better than that. So great design, really love it. I think it could be really part of your sort of unique, you associated with. This is sort of like the Triforce for Zelda and so on.
You have
But did
seen
it make it
nothing
too
yet.
easy? Did it make it too easy though, Odo, or did you still die? Like I tried, I went into this place and then I met a boss in a lake-ish. He was really fast, and I got my ass handed to me, like 2 hits maybe.
Interesting. To me, I still died a bunch of times. Because it makes it easier that you can sort of chicken out and just throw it at them and then run away. And then also it works that it throws the direction that the camera is looking, so you can run away and throw it back at them, which was really, I thought it was really fun to do.
The skill ceiling of managing the boomerang is kind of high, because you can do a lot of interesting things with it.
Interesting. Yeah, I really loved it. So, but I did die a couple of times, especially since you also have those enemies who shoot arrows at you. So then it doesn't help that much to have the boomerang, because then they will probably be more accurate and kill you faster. So there is a lot of times where it's not the best weapon, I think, but I did it out of laziness, perhaps.
Hey, it's a valid play style. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in there.
Yeah, but I really loved it. Some other things related to UX. I know we come back to this topic a lot, but I think it goes into the point that Rune mentioned as well, with saving, for example. So as I found out how to save, I think it was actually due to some other thing Mireneye told me at a previous point before playing the game, when I played it with my potato computer, how to save the game. So I learned it through there. But basically there are these shrines that have this sort of playbox music. So you go into there and then you rest, and that sort of lets you save. And there also, I don't know if it's the intention to be a bit mysterious or not, but I would feel that the menu there was sort of overwhelming, because you have the skill tree something, and there was just this enormous thing. And then you have a lot of other options that I didn't really figure out what they do. So the only thing I used it for was resting, which is healing and then saving, but nothing else. So that's something that really seems like an interesting concept, but I don't know how it works.
Yep, and that's part of it.
Interesting.
We have toyed with the idea of making it more like, just in a way, like telling you what it does, but it just kind of ruins it.
There are a few menu options in there that is like having a blurb of what the thing, like for instance, like the list of skills that we have that you can use, like just like having picture, video, something that like have a tooltip, some part of it, not necessarily what every button does, but like some of the sub menu stuff.
All I can say is I've made that art for that menu as like visually telling as I could have without like just ruining it out. So I think as you play the game, you might see elements in those menus that you will find elsewhere in the game, and maybe you put two and two together, and kind of organically figured it out. Or, just look it up on the newest IGN article when the game comes out.
Yeah, exactly.
This leads very much into a point that I don't know if I made this point the last time we spoke, but way that I've described the game to people lately a lot is that it's playing this game should be like a communication with a world that is dying. Something that's dying is inherently like broken, right? So, but not by saying that I don't mean bugs and shit. I mean like by design broken in a very specific way.
No, that would be Starfield.
Oh, damn.
As opposed to Elden Ring, I don't hold back on Bethesda.
In those words, when you encounter something in the world that is, mysterious to you, or that doesn't quite make sense at first, I think we do best where we, like you say, like you want, really, Otto, where you communicate things to the player. Yes, I think we do that a lot. But we communicate it over the course of time and over almost meditation on the game.
Yeah.
It's like that time that you spend like walking from place to place, if we can incite the question of like, oh, while I'm still walking, like what was that thing back there? What was the weird menu options? Maybe I should check that out next time, like when I get to it. And then like you have something in your inventory that maybe points you to what some of the mystery of that is like over time unraveling those things, and that also recontextualizes the world that you experience. So for instance, in one of my playthrough, I can get through Wilden, which is the starting town. I can get through the town in seconds, probably. Well, maybe not seconds, maybe like a minute, right? And because I've come to realizations that make the journey through that place much faster. Even like just getting through some of the interesting points in that place. And that's because of things that I learned in the game and things that I found in the game. So recontextualizing play spaces is something I think we play with a lot over the course of your time when you're learning things about the world.
We're closing in on 1 hour. Are we going to keep this to 1 hour or... Otto?
Yeah, I think we'll keep it a bit longer, I guess.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I wanna say, I don't know how to say this without sounding harsh. So what you just said, Mireneye, I love that. I really do dig that kind of shit. The way you talk about the game and you came to the realization that it is this messaging a dying world. That's not what you said last time. And this is something I experienced myself with my game, that what the game is no longer what I set out to be. It's sort of, or I guess it had become what it was supposed to be, but I messages it wrong before. So I do like this idea that, it sounds so artistic and so, but so here's the harsh part. You do realize that, right? That how you talk about the game is so like a normal schmuck is not gonna get it. Like I don't even get it. I just know that I love it. I love what you're talking about, but I still don't get it. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
I feel like it's such and I feel like it's such a. I always talk about this with Odo. Like nowadays, there's so many games, so you need to find your niche or like your little cult of people who like what you're doing. And I feel like that's what you guys are doing, and I do really appreciate that and love that, because I think that's very important in this super samey industry where everything is look the fucking same and plays the same and so on. So that's really cool. But I do wonder if you guys know that, and like, because when you do this niche thing, that also means it's probably gonna be a less, it's not gonna be Elden Ring, it's not gonna be this super game, but I do think it's gonna be the perfect game to maybe fewer people. Like, do you guys ever think like that, or
Absolutely.
That's cool. Yeah,
I also think a lot about the golden scenario of that, which is where people go, "Oh, Demon Souls is just a niche little game," right? Because that was like literally like its inception.
Yeah, true,
Right.
true. That's a good point.
So,
Yeah,
because even was it Shuhei Yoshida who was like, yeah, this isn't gonna go well. Like, yeah, like wasn't gonna release it in the US or whatever. So it's so interesting to me because that perception can also change over time. So there's this golden scenario where like once people understand the design and people get into it and start talking about that, then it takes a life of its own in that sense. That's the golden scenario. I'm not saying that necessarily where we'll go with Dynasthir. I understand that we're starting niche. I also understand that we are touching on some points in this game, I think, sort of vibe-wise, that hopefully when the game is released is the perfect time for type of creative vibe that the world is in.
Good point, yeah.
I feel what you were saying about it being niche, and it absolutely is for a, like, if you take like one step back, you're like, yeah, that's a niche game. Like it has a specific audience to start with. I don't think that necessarily needs to be true for its entire lifetime.
Yeah, I mean, games get seen in different lights as time passes. But I would say that's definitely the golden scenario, like Mireneye said. But I would say, personally, I feel we're already in the golden scenario of we're just doing this out of our own hearts. Like I'm not doing this for a niche or a target audience or whatever shit like that. I'm just doing this because I like doing this, and I feel with this game we're just putting ourselves and our own hearts into this creation. I want to make it sound less mopey, like.
But yeah, I totally get it. That it's sort of a.
Yeah, like we're doing it in a way like this is our artistic truth, right? God, that sounds so pretentious.
Yeah, but sort of like it doesn't matter if it becomes a smash hit or not.
Yeah, like I'm doing this from the heart, period. And some people are going to resonate with that, right? And fantastic. If we can just make a game that people sit down with and play and have a good time, and years from now can look back at it and be like, that was pretty good. That was pretty fun. That's fantastic. That's the golden scenario. And I feel that's already going to happen. Like, there's going to be at least one motherfucker out there who's going to love the game and think about it years from now. It's got to be at least one.
Yeah, I think those are the games that will survive long term.
Yeah, and if we fuck it up, we're going to learn from it. Right? If this fucks up and we're completely wrong and turns out, none of it resonates with anybody somehow, it's not the last game we're going to make. So
I have a hard time actually seeing a very, like, even just a very dark scenario where, like, not very dark, but even like just 10 years down the line, someone picks up the like the game for $1 on Steam or something, and then like plays it and it's like gets into it. And then makes like a video essay or some shit about it. It's like, because like at some point, all of those like games that are getting released, they end up in some sort of like digital, what is it called? Like, what is it called? Used game spin, but not quite used, but like they're over there.
Right.
And people can make content about these old games for years and years and years and years. And I feel like it would be impossible that nobody's going to pick it up at some point and be like, what is this thing? And then start to unravel it for everyone else. Right? I feel like that's almost inevitable.
That's also a nice place to be in when even 10 years from now, if someone picks it up and just falls in love with it and do all this content on it. I mean, that must just feel amazing. So that's cool, yeah.
And who knows how many games in will be by 10 years, not necessarily Dynasthir, but us, like as developers, and look ourselves looking back at Dynasthir and be like, damn, we would do that differently, or like here's what we would improve, all that stuff. Because it's not going to be the Elden Ring. Of course, it's not. Elden Ring wasn't the first game FromSoft made.
Yeah, of course. But I think on that note, I think we should start wrapping up the episode. But before we do that, I would like to give you the opportunity to just pitch the game and anything else you want. So, for example, where can you wishlist the game? Do you have any Discord communities they should join? Do you have anything else they should know? So please just go ahead and give us all you got.
I want to talk about going through Wilden in seconds because we have a speedrun competition coming up for the demo.
Ooh.
And you can read about it below, hopefully. There's prizes, there's fun times. You can request access on Steam, the same place where you wishlist it. We already have quite the number of people who requested. We're gonna make an announcement when we reach a particular number we would like to reach. Wishlist it. Check out the trailer. It's on the Steam page. It's on YouTube. If you check it out on YouTube, please show it to other people as well. If you like it, listen, if you don't like it, I'm not asking anything from you. Just have a good day. But if you do like it, show it to your friends. Be like, hey, look at this dope shit. Join the Discord because you two are in the Discord, so you know what's up. We like to Waluigi party in there sometimes. And there's a lot of devs in there, and there's a lot of cool stuff. It's quiet sometimes it's not. The more the merrier. So join that up. And I think that's everything I can think of. What about you, Mireneye?
I think you summarized most of it quite well. We do also have a page on itch just for the game itself. So if you have like some strong dislike for Steam, you can always just go there and check out same thing, trailer, screenshots, things like that. Another thing that I want to mention is that we are really now only starting to get marketing material stuff out there, like in terms of like just continuously every week trying to post something. We're in the starting trenches of that, I would say. So now, if ever, is the time for people to join in on that, because we're only going to ramp up until I guess the game is released. That is the idea.
So when is that, by the way?
When is that? Everyone wants to know.
We'll find out soon enough.
I will say, I think I said this the last time that we talked as well, where the demo covers chapter 0, basically all of it, except for obviously there are characters we don't want to have in chapter 0 that will be in the final full game to not lead you on something that it doesn't exist in the demo. And then there's a few events and things that take course over the course of the entire game that pertain to the area of the demo. So that's not in the demo either. But aside from that, I'm going to say what it is now. It's chapter 1. We rebranded because it was confusing having chapter 0, 1, 2, 3, because it makes so much sense for a programmer. But saying starting to count chapters for people, I had to explain it every time. So it's chapter 1 is the demo. So we have 4 chapters that we're making for the game. And we are working on chapter 2 right now, which is one of the bigger ones because it requires most of the world to be done. And then chapter 3 is pretty straightforward. And chapter 4 is another kind of big chapter. I mean, it is the end of the game, so
the finale.
The finale. So it does systematically, everything we built over the course of the chapters, we keep testing it and seeing how everything works together. So I expect chapter 4 to be the most exciting one in terms of is the maybe not exciting one, the one that will put the most mechanics to test, let's say.
It'll be fun to make. And we're closer to it than we've ever been, so that's exciting.
Just as a last thing before we end the episode, so would you just like to give us your elevator pitch for the game? So why should you get it? What people should like it, or whatever you can to make people experience this amazing game?
If you like walking in video games, really like walking, turning 10 minutes of running into 30 minutes of walking, get this game. Evidently. I know people like this. I know you're out there, motherfuckers. If you resonate with anything in this conversation, you're probably going to resonate with the game. I could just do that bombastic helicopter pitch again, but what's the point? I already did it once. Yeah, check it out. You can check out, I mean, just saying, you could probably request access and not necessarily participate in the speed run. And just play the game. Just play the demo. Just saying. we ain't gonna do nothing about it. But if you do like it, come by the Discord. If you don't like it, come by the Discord, and if you passionately don't like it and have things to say, come by the Discord and give us your feedback. Because rest assured, we wouldn't be able to do it as well as we did without people's feedback. It's super important every step of the way, and we appreciate it deeply.
Cool.
This is going to be more of like a final word than perhaps the pitch for the game by itself. But one thing that I wanted to bring on this podcast that we actually didn't really, we touched upon it a little bit, that I wanted to just communicate outwards a little bit, was really a bit of a blurb or design blurb about like just designing a dying world. And like I said, like the part about communicating, communication with a dying world. Where do I want to take this? Because I'm trying to summarize lots of different thoughts that I was having. Right. There is a sort of larger narrative, obviously, that goes on in everything in our everyday lives. Things come, things pass. Recently, around December, my mother and my father passed away, sort of like similar times. During the course of this project, I have had the death of my pet hamster. I've had 2 relationships go to hell. Actually, it's close to 3. It's 3 relationships go to the bin. This project has survived all of those things. My grandmother also. Mother's side also passed away like some years ago. And my friend Bjarne. And all of those things, they feed into the world creatively in a way where, like the tagline, the world is dying, will you persist, right? All of these people that has passed away, it feeds into the overall thing about the communication with the dying world and what that means to you as a player. So I don't want to leave that on the sad note here. What I want to say is just that I think that if you've experienced like loss in the last year, if you've experienced hardships, I think there's an underlying narrative in Dynasthir that is meant to resonate with the world as it is today, as it will be probably when this is released, probably more true now than ever. And I really would like for people to experience that and think about that.
It's very dark and sad, but damn, it's also you said a dying world. That's a unique spin to the whole to anything else I've ever played, I think. That's
I think there's a lot of apocalyptic worlds, and there's like a lot of like the ones where things are, going to shit in that sense, right? I think there's lots of those out there. But here it's very core, I would say. Together with the exploration and the wonder, because some part of you keeps the world alive by exploring it.
Yeah, really sorry to hear all of that, and I really commend you for soldiering on with this project, if not else, as well as with life.
Let's say it like this. You may be sorry, but also let's be a bit excited that when they passed on, they left something inside of me that I want to communicate creatively to the world.
Yeah. Beautiful thought. And I think with that, I think we'll wrap up the episode. But as I said earlier, it's a fantastic game. It's really fascinating. It's, as you pointed out, a very unique experience. So I would recommend anyone to try it out and see what you think. And with that, thank you so much for taking the time to be on this podcast and
Thank you for having us.
talking about it. Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Rune, for being my amazing co-host. And we'll see you next week.
Hi.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Ciao.
This is an atrocity. Have you even seen how the rift grows?
The gods. They don't care.